In the mid-90s, before the prequels came out, the popularity of Star Wars was reignited with the arrival of 3 post-Return of the Jedi novels known as the Thrawn Trilogy, written by Timothy Zahn. These novels explain what exactly happened to our beloved heroes after the movies ended in 1983. Fan reception to these novels was overwhelmingly positive and led to a resurgence of Star Wars media, including countless other novels, comics, and video games. These stories were known as the Star Wars Expanded Universe. But for a lot of people, this was the only Star Wars we knew outside of the films themselves. But when Disney bought the rights to Star Wars back in 2014, all these other stories we grew up with were suddenly deemed non-canon, to the dismay of many fans who love them. But even though they're non-canon, I still believe these old stories are still some of the best Star Wars that you can find. Heck, some of them are a lot better than a lot of the canon stuff nowadays. So I decided to take a look back at a few of these old stories and dive into why I prefer a lot of them over a lot of the new canon material. One of my favorites being the subject of today's video, Deceived, written by Paul S. Kemp. Deceived takes place in the era of the Old Republic, thousands of years before the events of the movies. Here, there is no Luke, no Vader, no Empire, no clones. These were the days when the Jedi of the Republic defended the galaxy from not just a few Sith, but an army of them. Some of you may recall the Deceived cinematic trailer based on the popular Old Republic video games. This novel not only goes into more detail about the events of that trailer, but also depicts what happened after. In Deceived, a powerful Sith Lord named Darth Malgus storms the Jedi Temple, kills everyone inside, and manages to completely overthrow Coruscant. Just like we see in the trailer, a Jedi in particular named Master Zalo is killed trying to stop Malgus. However, light years away on Alderaan, Zalo's apprentice, Aaron Lanier, learns of her master's death and vows vengeance on Malgus for his murder. So Aaron teams up with an old friend named Zirid, a bounty hunter looking to make a better life for himself and his daughter, to travel to Coruscant, find Malgus, avenge Zalo, and retake the planet. Canon or not, this may very well be my favorite Star Wars story ever. This was an engaging read, packed with some of the most intriguing characters in Star Wars history, and a story that gripped me from beginning to end. Right away, my favorite thing about this book are the characters. Aaron Lanier is one of the best Star Wars protagonists ever, putting someone like Rey to absolute shame. She's this capable, headstrong Jedi Knight whose plight you sympathize with and can relate to. She's not one of these boring, stuffy-headed Jedis who's all about honoring the code and whatnot. She feels pain, she feels loss, she feels vengeance. She feels the need to honor the death of her master. She does all of this while still being very heroic, very brave, and just downright affable. She's quite possibly the most interesting lead female protagonist in the EU. You care about Aaron, and you want her to win in the end, but hopefully not lose herself in the process. The same can be said for her partner Zirid. Zirid is a tough-as-nails, no-nonsense guy whose only hope is to be a good father to his daughter and provide her with the life that he never had. He's been contracted by a gang to smuggle items across the galaxy, but only does so because they're holding his daughter's life against him. Aaron eventually finds Zirid again, and the two of them have great chemistry with each other. They both care for one another and are too stubborn to admit it. Zirid wants to let Aaron in, but knows the mission comes first. Zirid often considers that Aaron may be going too far for her revenge, and some part of Aaron knows he's right, but still feels the need to carry on. These two leads are movie-quality good, and I can only hope that we'll see them on screen someday. But by far, my favorite character in this novel is the villain, Darth Malgus. Malgus may very well be my favorite Sith of all time. Whereas someone like Palpatine would play the long game and try to control the galaxy by working from afar and playing sides and pulling strings from the shadows, Malgus says, screw all that noise. You want to take over the galaxy? Ram a cruiser full of Sith warriors into the temple doors, slaughter everyone, and forget subtlety entirely. I just find it so cool that what took Palpatine years to do, Malgus did in a day. This character already had a ton of popularity through the cinematic trailers, so anyone who was a fan of those cinematics will love him here. Not only is he incredibly menacing, threatening, and powerful, Kemp goes the extra mile by making him interesting as a person. Malgus has a weakness, his love for a Twi'lek woman named Elena. This book introduces the very interesting concept of a Sith with a lover. It asked all the interesting questions of, can a Sith be in love? What would that relationship be like? Would Malgus consider her a weakness? Would she be a distraction from him attaining ultimate power? All of these interesting dynamics come to light in this story. I cared just as much about Malgus and Alina as I would Han Solo and Leia. Their romance is far more interesting than anything we saw from Anakin and Padme because of how dysfunctional and toxic it is. But at the same time, despite all of that, the two of them truly do love each other. This was without a doubt the most fascinating element of the story for me, and I was compelled from the start. There are other villains too, like Darth Angral and Darth Adras, who tend to hold Malgus on a leash. These characters are also interesting, and we see the power struggle between them and Malgus, and their constant exploiting of Alina against Malgus. Deceived was a page-turner in every sense of the word. It's stories like these that truly make me wish Disney hadn't all but wiped them from the face of the earth. I understand that Disney eventually wants to bring the Old Republic to life, and if they do, they would be foolhardy not to look at stories like Deceived for inspiration. This novel crafts a compelling plot more than worthy of a film adaptation, and it tells a story that is emotionally investing, exciting, dark, and tragic. I am still surprised none of the novel writers have ever been brought in to do story treatments for the films. Paul S. Kemp later on went to write arguably my favorite canon novel called Lords of the Sith, which I also recommend. So clearly the higher-ups were smart to keep him around. This story asks many intriguing questions not truly explored in the movies. A Jedi seeking revenge, a Sith with a love interest, and other deeper explorations of the overall themes of Star Wars in general. If you're an EU junkie, I highly recommend Deceived to you. Or if you're someone who just wants to dip their toes into the old canon and see why it was so beloved, then I hope you get around to this story as well. With interesting characters, exciting action, a tragic story about hope, love, redemption, and vengeance, and just an overall interesting and compelling Star Wars adventure, Deceived is an absolute goldmine, and one of my all-time favorites, if not my favorite.